Well, hello everyone. How are you doing? I am doing good. Actually, why do I say that? I am doing good, but I've been feeling a little under the weather. It happens, right? So I've been doing a lot of sleeping, which I guess is good because I don't do that very often. So a couple messages. First of all, I'm going to do what I'm doing today. There's a book that was sent to me by one of the listeners, Derek R. Wills, who wrote this book. I have featured this in one of my Liberty Boudoirs where I went through the introduction, but I think I'm going to do separate episodes where I'm going through it because he so kindly sent it to me. And I like talking through books. That's the way I learn. But I also wanted to show you, we still need to do some history. There's one more article to finish up here in the Libertarian Handbook. And it is The Mercenary Menace. Let's see if I can... There we go. The lighting in here is really bright to show you this, but we will be doing this. And lastly, I got this in the mail. This is what I do with some of, you can see my shemai? You can see my shameless grifting along the bottom. I'm not going to highlight it this time, but there you go. Of course, you can't super chat on a pre-recorded. I should have took that off there, but, you know, I may be a grifter, but I'm a lazy grifter. But this is part of what I do with patron money. Of course, you know, some of it, this is my job right now. But I also, when I find artifacts, I purchase them, and then I donate them to the party, if they're libertarian related. So I haven't even opened this up. At first, when I saw it for sale, I thought it was an old LP News. It's in the exact same format. And I have all of those. But no, it's an old Libertarian Party of California newsletter, which apparently they did in the same format. I think it's number 2. Like, it's super old. Get it here. Yeah, it's volume 1, number 2, October 1972. And it looks just like LP News. So we're going to be going through this. And it's just, I didn't know if there was a middle page in the middle, so it's just like a fold out. Talks about John Hosper's and some meetings. And it's just called The Libertarian. Is the newsletter of the California Libertarian Party. But there's an interesting, I was really interested, it's hard to see what's in the back here, which is address by David Morrison at the first Northern California Libertarian Party meeting, September 2nd, 1972. So you get a lot of information here. What happened at the first meeting, what the date of the first meeting was of this, and I believe it's like a sub-affiliate, or it's not the state party, its affiliate, the Northern California Libertarian Party, because California is so big. And it's interesting to see that they were divided like that. And I don't mean divided in a bad way. Parsed out, I guess, is the better way. The way this closed, though, it kind of both concerned me, and I thought it was a great quote, but it also, like, concerns me because I don't like talks of violent revolution and things like that. And I'm not really saying that's what he's saying, but here's the last sentence. He said, Patrick Henry stated a false alternative 200 years ago that lies heavily on the minds of freedom lovers today, and I believe it's give me freedom or give me death. We should end the feeling of personal impotence by leading the way and presenting the true alternative. Our job is not to die for our cause, but to make that dumb bastard over there die for his. And it says, paraphrased remark attributed to General George Patton. So I'd never seen that before. Now, I've got to get to a Zoom meeting in 15 minutes, so this will be a short episode. Again, I had already talked about the preface and the foreword in a Liberty Boudoir. But let me see what kind of notes I put in here, because maybe it wouldn't hurt to stick it in here. Yeah, why not? So it keeps it all together. You don't have to go hunting for that. So the one thing I highlighted in the preface, I'm going to read a couple paragraphs at the very end of the preface. This treatise is what many will call and have called extreme. Yes, love extreme. In the most literal definitions, they would technically be correct. However, I reject the notion that the ideas of self-ownership and national rights are fallacious. Well, extreme doesn't mean fallacious. What are portrayed in this treatise are not new ideas. Everything is built upon the ideas of liberty-minded philosophers, scholars, and intellectuals who came before me. And since liberty itself is a gift from nature, everything written on these pages is as old as mankind itself. You know what I loved here is a sentence that made me stop and go, wait, is that grammar right? And then I'm like, no, that grammar's awesome. I'm a grammar geek. And the sentence is, what are portrayed in this treatise? Because you expect to hear what is portrayed. But because the subject is ideas, which is plural, it's ideas are, not ideas is. Just thought I'd do that. You know, I want to do not necessarily a grammar podcast, but like a language and words, you know, type podcast that connect it to history, like a blend of words and history. I'm looking for, you know, I may still do that on my own, but I'm kind of looking for a co-host to do it with that, like loves it the same way and kind of the geeky way I do, but has a dynamic personality that we can vibe off each other. If that is you, let me know. Maybe we will do something together. Though I am now trying to find a job in my field, which will limit my YouTube time, but I also would just like to branch out into multiple channels and make this my job. But let's continue. In order for liberty in her message to thrive, it is imperative that we as individuals reject any and all notions of philosophical hypocrisy, even if that means we must adopt a view that we do not personally like in one area in order to keep consistency across the entire spectrum. I find that really important. This is one of the biggest issues across the world, and it is the root cause of most, if not all, of the tyrannies that run rampant. I will not lie and tell you that it'll be easy. For some it might be. For others it will not. When I began this project, there were many positions I was forced to change by the time it was completed in order to do that very thing. Intellectual honesty is absolutely necessary if liberty is going to be saved from her deathbed. I hope he says in here what positions he was forced to change. I find that very interesting. So part 1, this I haven't done before. Grievances against the state. Chapter 1 is what is liberty? And you know, I like to kind of look ahead. There are 15 chapters divided into 2 sections, grievances against the state and solution to the state. The last chapter starts on page 183, so you can get an idea of how long this book is. And how many chapters did I say? 15 chapters. So they're not terribly long in order to, let me see the total length of the book. It's 194 pages. Alrighty, so now we know what we're getting into. I kind of learned that from that book called How to Read a Book, which I would love to go through on like a words/history show. I already got a name for it, by the way. And be focused more on the words part rather than the history, because that would be secondary. But anyway, I've got it all planned out. Just need to get it going with the right co-host. Okay, the little quote on the top is, I prefer dangerous liberty to peaceful servitude. Thomas Jefferson, amen. And like I do with these, I just extract out what I think are highlights and then maybe talk about them. So it gives you a taste for the book, but I always encourage you to read it because my little snippets are probably even less than Sparks notes. It's just things that I find interesting. It says, liberty will never thrive if what she looks like is not the same for every individual. Liberty is not fluid, and she does not change her looks with the times or from person to person. Liberty is natural and concrete. Let's see how he develops this, but on its face, I don't agree with that statement. I think the very notion of liberty is that it does look different from person to person. But I have a feeling he means the actual rules don't change, but the expression of them might, if I'm saying that right. But looks like, to me, means expression rather than, I don't know what we would put here in its place. It says, oh, he goes on. So I misunderstood, but that still struck out to me. Because he goes on to say what he means is a definition. Then I think the looks like was just the wrong way to say it. But this is how I interact with books, okay? So he says, the right of the individual to invoke sole dominion over their own life to act as they see fit, provided the act in and of itself does not directly infringe on the right of another individual to do the same. And I love directly infringe. That's important. That's something we don't usually include. It says, this is what liberty looks like in panorama, and she is beautiful. Or is she? As I like to say, liberty is not a tame lion. The proper description of her insinuates that others will act in a manner with which you will personally disagree, sometimes even to a deplorable and morally abhorrent level. True liberty is not beautiful in all her features. That is profoundly true. And we need to be honest about that. It doesn't mean we want to cultivate the deplorable side. But liberty can be a bitch. It says, this is precisely why we should always err on the side of liberty in all things, especially when the liberty we do not like is attacked. And that's how I live my life. You often have to defend the undefendable. There's a difference, however, between natural rights, those that exist in the pure absence of the state, and state-given rights. I think natural rights exist whether the state is absent or not. They just might not be able to be expressed. And then he goes on to talk about things that people call rights, particularly state-given rights. And he says, when you really think about it, these aren't rights at all, but instead are privileges. And that is so true. Liberty, the act of exercising one's natural rights, and morality, that which is deemed good and bad by an individual, are not the same thing, and they can and do coexist in a society. I'm going to be doing a whole show on that, because that is so misunderstood. Liberty is a subset of morality. It's not a complete theory of morality. As an example, take the act of drinking alcohol to excess on a daily basis. Many people believe this to be an immoral act. However, since it does not in and of itself violate another person's liberty, it must be included that it is in fact a natural right. People try and oppose this view by suggesting that the intoxicated person could act recklessly, and in doing so harm someone else. In such a case, the assaultive or negligent action the person took to cause injury to another, assaultive isn't the right word. We often confuse assault and battery. Again, this is me being picky. The action the person took to cause injury to another would be just as illegal, regardless of their level of sobriety. Criminalizing the previous act, very important, of being intoxicated, does nothing but violate the liberty of everyone else who wished to do so while harming no one. And that is so important. I love the way that was worded. It says, as liberty is a precious gift from nature, it should not only be protected, but restored to the way nature intended. Of course, this is reification of nature here. As a religious person, I obviously would think this is God, but I understand why he's writing it that way, and you kind of do have to reify nature. And I don't mind wording it that way, even as a religious person. It is up to us as individuals to make the decisions necessary. If each of us, and it's to protect liberty, is what he's talking to. If each of us waits to act until we see others begin taking the first steps, then we are doomed to the status quo. Liberty will only die if we let her. Next chapter will be destruction of property. And it is, I like to look ahead and tell you how long. This looks like a little bit of a longer one. Yeah, so it's about 25 pages, just under 25 pages. And that will be the next one. So if you're interested in this, it is on Amazon. And this looks like, so far at least, a really good book to give out. Now, I've reviewed some other books that are more moderate, that are also good to give out, you knowing your audience. Me being more of a radical, this is more like what I would give out. But, again, to somebody who wasn't yet ready for the heady stuff of liberty, like Judge Jim Gray's books, like 2 Paragraphs for Liberty, are Also highly recommended to give out, though I think this is a bit up my alley with the type of people I necessarily talk to. Okay, that's it for now. I'm not doing any other shows tonight. Again, I've got a lot to do. Working with my campaign graphics team tonight. Yes, I have been working on my either re-election or reinstatement campaign. No matter what, I'm staying, huns. I'm staying. Talk to you soon.